I think really, really important when we think about trying to find our purpose, that it truly isn't something that we just think our way to. It is something that we feel. And if we have been in a long season of stress or survival or outsourcing, that felt sense of purpose, that one that really lights you up, it can go very quiet.
Hey lady, welcome to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. Do you struggle with self-doubt, setting boundaries, or feeling overwhelmed? My name is Alyssa, and I'm a highly sensitive woman who spent years trying to fit in, ignoring my own needs, and living in constant fear of disappointing others. But I finally discovered the power of embracing who I am, and now I don't feel so broken. In this podcast, you'll learn to find your voice, set boundaries, and live with bold confidence and inner peace. Grab a cozy blanket. It's time to connect with someone just like you.
Welcome back to the Highly Sensitive Woman. I am so excited to talk about finding your purpose today because for so many years, I was searching, and I know many of you have been doing a lot of those same things, trying to find your purpose. You have been doing everything right. You have been journaling and going to the retreats and taking the personality tests and having conversations with friends and family and mentors. And I did all of those things too. And yet, even in doing all of that, I know that something still feels out of reach for many of you. And it is absolutely not a failure of effort. You have been trying really, really hard. And I know that I was trying really, really hard to, just thinking if I would find the right book to read or the right personality test, I would find all of the answers and unlock it, and I would know my purpose. And I envied the people who said, I know this is what I was meant to do. And it might be that in all of that effort, we've just been looking in the wrong direction. And so I want to offer, what if your purpose isn't something that you find, but rather something that you become available to? I want to acknowledge that it is very, very natural to search at any age, regardless of where you are. And I mean, in our education system, right? Like, we are encouraging students as early as middle school to be exploring their career path, whatever that might be, and kind of presenting this as you've got to figure it out now, and giving them all of these tools to figure it out, right? And I know for those of you who are listening, especially in your 40s and older, that was very much the messaging that we received, is that if you just try hard enough, you will find the answer, and that there is one right answer, and you pick it and you stick with it and you find your purpose, and then life is great. And that sounds really nice. It does. And I wish that was how it worked. Honestly, I wish for all of us that was how it worked, and it was just that simple. But most of our purpose frameworks make an assumption that we're going to use these tools in conjunction with an inner quiet. And quite honestly, most of us never really had a chance to develop that inner quiet and to learn how to trust it, because we were taught to outsource it. We were taught to use these tools outside of us, and we were given this messaging outside of us. So if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, or you've been on a purpose-seeking journey for a while, you may be starting to notice where you have been outsourcing your sense of direction to other people's frameworks and other people's timelines and other people's definitions of a meaningful life. And you haven't fully learned how to trust what is coming from inside you yet, because the searching itself can be one of the barriers that keep us removed from what it is that we're looking for. And so I invite you to kind of start this process of discovering your purpose from a place of curiosity rather than pressure of I have to figure it out because, and whatever the because is, because of how old I am, or because of, again, fill in the blank, taking off that pressure and having curiosity instead. And when was the last time that you felt settled enough to just listen to yourself? Because here is what managing yourself actually means. And this is not a criticism. It is something that is very much a part of the human experience. But so many of us are quietly carrying a full-time inner job. And we are constantly managing ourselves by keeping our emotions in check and holding anxiety at bay and showing up for others and staying on top of everything. And you can just keep going down the list of this full-time inner job that we are doing to manage ourselves. And then that leads to us not being able to really tell what is truly ours and what is coming from a place of fear from these outside sources. And so you may stay stuck in inaction. And what I mean by that is you just keep doing the same thing. You keep caring for other people, and you keep showing up to the same job that you have, and you keep the same habits and patterns that you already have. And so what I mean by inaction is no action to change anything. We just stay with the status quo, right? Or you may find yourself taking action towards something, but that something doesn't stick because it doesn't feel quite right, but you can't exactly explain why. So an example of this is you recognize that maybe there needs to be a change. And so you take action by going back to school to get a degree in something because someone else told you that you would probably be really good at that. And you find yourself, you've signed up and you start taking the classes, but you don't really want to sit down and do the homework because, again, it doesn't feel quite right. And yet you can't exactly explain why, because it made a whole lot of sense when this other person told you that you would be really good at it. So some gentle signs that you might be managing yourself and you might be outsourcing is you have a kind of tired that no amount of sleep really touches. And that tired is still an underlining part of your everyday life. You have a lot of that mental back and forth when it comes to making decisions. And we have talked a lot about that. And if you haven't listened to the episodes on making decisions, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to those, because that mental back and forth is very energy draining. Sometimes you feel like you are performing fine more than actually feeling fine or feeling good or feeling great. And there's just this sense that the deeper questions that you have just keep getting pushed to later and later and later. And I will get to that when my children are grown and out of the house, or I will get to that when I have, this amount of money in the bank so that I feel financially secure to take on the debt of going back to school, right? Those deeper questions, they just get pushed to later. Because again, you're managing the status quo of how things are right now. And that's not a flaw, right? It is just a sign of how much you have been carrying and the way that you have been showing up for other people. And here's something that is, I think, really, really important when we think about trying to find our purpose, that it truly isn't something that we just think our way to. It is something that we feel. And if we have been in a long season of stress or survival or outsourcing, that felt sense of purpose, that one that really lights you up, it can go very quiet. And so the more that we try to hear it and the more that we try to force it to speak up, actually the quieter it gets. And when you cannot hear yourself clearly, everything feels like a guess. And then you second guess your instincts and your preferences and even your own reactions to things. And so there is a very real difference between analyzing your life from the outside and gently feeling into it from the inside. And when we are analyzing from the outside and we are outsourcing, we experience things like perfectionism and people pleasing and old hurts that kind of keep us in managing mode because we don't want to reopen that wound and we don't want to rip off that scab. And this truly is not any sort of diagnosis or judgment, because we all do it. Even those of us who might look like we have it all together, we are still doing this to a certain degree. And so I just want to offer this as maybe an aha moment for you, like, oh yes, that is what I have been doing, and not from a place of judgment, but just an awareness. And it allows us to then start having some curiosity about what to do next. And practically, what to do next can look like sitting with uncertainty without rushing to resolve it. And I know what that feels like. I know you know what that feels like, because our brains do not like uncertainty. But that is not a weakness. That is our natural DNA wiring. That is how a human brain works. It does not like uncertainty. So allowing yourself to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty without rushing to resolve it. It's allowing yourself to rest without guilt and learning kind of the difference between rest that you actually need versus rest that comes from a judgment of yourself. Like, I can't handle all of these things, so I need to rest more. And then just allowing yourself to be imperfect. When we do those things, purpose, and part of that quiet voice, it gets easier to hear it when we settle. And so I want to give you 4 things that you can start doing to create the conditions to allow you to experiment with allowing your purpose to kind of emerge versus trying to catch it. So one is just ease off the big question. Instead of what is my purpose, try asking what feels even a little bit alive for me right now. I know so often we are thinking 1 year, 3 years, 5 years down the road, and there is a lot of power and value in having a vision for your future self. And that can come with a lot of pressure. So kind of taking that pressure off and coming back to the present moment. What feels even a little bit alive for me right now? Another thing that you can do to start creating the conditions to allow your purpose to emerge is notice what is draining you, and not trying to fix it overnight, just to see it more clearly. Because without awareness, we can't start fixing it, right? But we're not trying to fix it just now. We just want to see clearly and have an awareness of what is draining you. The third thing to start to create conditions for allowing your purpose to emerge is practice being able to tell the difference between what is real and what is coming from a place of fear. And so when a thought or a feeling comes up, again, being curious, is this true? Or is this the 2 a.m. version of true? Do you know what I mean by the 2 a.m. version of true? I don't know how many of you experience this. I would suspect a good number of you that there are times in your life when you are having trouble sleeping, getting to sleep, staying asleep, waking up really early. You are awake at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whatever that is. I like the 2 a.m. version. And when you are awake at 2 a.m., ruminating on something or maybe having some anxiety about something, that is often a version of something that is not true. It is coming from a place of fear or lack or not the real you. And so when a thought comes up, asking yourself, is this really true? Or is this the 2 a.m. version of true? And then the last thing to start creating conditions for your purpose to emerge is holding the question more lightly, because purpose is a gentle direction. It is not a destination you are already late for. And I speak from personal experience that sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit late to my purpose because I have discovered this work, and many of you have heard me say, I feel like this is the work that I was put on this earth to do. And my goodness, I wish I had found it sooner. And I also know that part of the reason I didn't get here sooner was because I was grasping so tightly and I was putting so much pressure on myself to figure it out that in that process, I was outsourcing and I couldn't figure it out. I became a version of myself that this purpose could not come. It could not emerge. So holding the question more lightly and allowing yourself to arrive at it regardless of where you are in your life, because you are never too late for finding your purpose. And so I just want to wrap this up by saying you haven't been doing it wrong. That version of me who was trying so hard, I wasn't doing it wrong. I just did what I thought was right with the information that I had at the time and the skills that I had at the time. And you have been doing the same. You have been doing what makes absolute complete sense with what you have had, the tools that you have been given, and inside a life that has asked a lot of you. And so this week, I just invite you to just kind of be aware of where you have quietly been managing and allow yourself to be curious about what is waiting underneath with regard to your purpose. And this is not another homework assignment. That is not what we are trying to do. It is not to feel like another thing that you are trying and some answer that you are grasping for. You don't have to go digging. It really is, let's just notice what comes up for you this week. And if this episode stirred something in you, and if you are starting to wonder if what you have been calling confusion might actually be some clarity that is trying to push its way through, then I want you to know that there is a next step available for you. I offer a 60-minute free consultation, and it is for those of you who have decided that you are done outsourcing your sense of direction and you are ready to start trusting what is inside you, and you're just not quite sure how to do that. We will take a look at where you feel most stuck, what actually might be underneath it, and whether working together is a good fit. And if that sounds like something you need right now, there is a link in the show notes to send me a message and schedule that consultation. Until next time, take care.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may be feeling like she's broken too? I'd love it if you'd leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Now it's time for me to stop talking and go soothe my senses in nature. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Take care.